So in this video, what I'm going to do is show you how to create a PHP Captcha that makes it so that computers can't just send you emails or whatever. If you have a email form on your website, you don't really want any type of like a bot, a computer bot, to come and send you an email. So this is very useful, and I'm going to show you how to make one. Now this isn't going to be like a CAPTCHA where you see like a big picture and it has all these words or letters on the picture and they're tilted and all that stuff. This is actually maybe one that asks like a question like, what is 1 plus 1? And you type in the answer and it checks it to make sure that's correct. So the way this works is I'm just going to make this file so that my captcha is separated from the rest of my page. So I have this global.php, and this is kind of the layout of my website. So the way this is going to work is we're going to include global.php, and global.php is going to do a few things that are just going to be standard on the entire website, or template. So we have we're going to allow sessions on the page, and then we're also going to include this functions file. So functions is going to includes all the function files for the entire website. So this is just the way I roll. You can do however you like to do it, but what I'm getting at is that you have to include this captcha.php. Doesn't matter how many includes you go through. Mine's like a lot of it's a series, but it doesn't matter how you do it. You're just gonna have to create this. So I'm on my laptop, just as a fair warning that it's going to sound like I'm punching at the keyboard because on my laptop I'm using the built-in speaker or microphone, I'm sorry. So whenever I'm talking and typing, it's really loud. Hopefully it's not too much though. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is create my page. So we'll have PHP, or the form I should say, and we're going to look if the form is submitted. So the way I do that is if is set post submit. Now it's not absolutely necessary to do the is set part of this, but I recommend putting the set part because some servers don't. If the variable is not set, then it throws an error, and I can show you how to get that error if you're interested. Basically, what you'll do is go to the top of your page. So I'll go to my global, and we'll turn on error reporting. So turn on. I'll just comment that. I'll just put in error reporting will be equal to all, so all errors. And now, let's just go back. I'm going to load that in my browser real quick. So demo.com PHP Captcha, and we don't get an error right now, but if I unset that variable, because this post is an array, so basically it's a global variable, which means it's always set by PHP whenever it loads, but all the different things inside of the post array are not always set. So if I reload this page, well, maybe it's the server. Okay, there it is. We get this noticed undefined index submit. So basically, some servers have this set, so it's always going to do this. So it's very strict in your coding, or it's very strict. So I usually don't have that turned on, but it doesn't hurt to turn it on while in development. So right now, just the way to fix that is if we have this is set turned on, then it makes sure that the variable isn't set. Okay, so if it's not set, we're going to go ahead and create our form. So I'm just going to have like a label here. This will be for the validate, and then we'll also have an input field. We'll set that type equal to text, and we'll give it a name equal to validate, and an ID equal to validate as well. And we'll add a line break to this. And I'll just go ahead and put in a submit button. And the name is if you're not familiar with this part, you should be before you watch this video. But basically, whenever a form submits, and I didn't get this at first, but I get it now. When a form submits, it takes the name of each input field or text area. It takes the name of those, and that's how it creates this post submit. So if we give this submit button a name of submit, PHP is going to find that name hook, and it's going to create this, so it's going to find out that the form has been submitted. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and save it like that. We'll give it a value equal to, and let's just make this like an email form, so email me, or whatever. So this is going to kind of look like the end of an email box. Okay, normally you would have like the subject and a from and a name and things like that, but because this is just, we're working on the CAPTCHA part of validating who's sending me this email. You know, let's make sure this is a human type thing. Okay, so that's what we're going for there, and or in this video really. So let's go ahead and create our questions. So I'm going to go back over to that CAPTCHA file and create or start my PHP, and I'm going to create a variable called questions, and that's going to be equal to an array. And if you're not familiar with arrays, I'm not going to explain it, but an array is basically, you can give it a what would this be, like a property, I guess. So we could have like an ID number here, so the first question, and then that's going to be equal to another array. And this array is going to have the actual question, which is going to be like what is 1 plus 3, and it's also going to have the answer. So this will be like 4. So when doing this, you don't just write a normal equal sign. You do equal and then lesser than sign, and then you put in a string format, whatever this is, and you separate each one by a comma. And it's kind of complicated the way this works. I'm looking at it and I see it as completely normal, but if you're first learning PHP and you see this, it's kind of weird to see an array inside of an array, but it's completely normal and it works. So don't try not to. I don't know how to make this easier, but if it's complicated, hopefully it's not. But we'll go ahead and set the second array, and it's going to be relatively the same thing here, just a different question and answer. So let's say, what is the color of snow? And we'll say it's white. So now that we've created our two questions, let's just go ahead and try to get those questions on the page, okay? So I'm going to create a function, and the function's name is going to be create question, and we're not going to pass any parameters through this, and we're just going to, let's just get this questions variable. So PHP, or the function inside of PHP, and when you're creating a function, it cannot call variables outside of the function normally. But if you globalize that variable, so we say global questions, now we can actually use this variable inside this function, okay? So let's just do something simple, like, kind of simple. We're going to say questions. Actually, I need echo questions. And I'm echoing the first ID number. The square brackets does this. So this is your key, okay, in a variable. Or you have a key and a value. I forgot about that in an array. So we're getting the key. The key is the very first thing. So in this case, we're pulling 1. And now we want to get the second key, which is the question, okay? So same thing. We're just going to append another square bracket on this for question. So whenever I go back to my page, and I'm just going to come somewhere like I don't know where a good place to put this is. I guess above the label. Let's just add like an H3 and put in our question. So we'll write create question. And I'll reload this page. And you can see what is 3 plus 3. Or I'm sorry, 1 plus 3. And we could type that in here, okay? So now we've created that question, and it's always going to be the first question, okay? Because we have this 1. If I change that to 2, then we get what is the color of snow. But we want this to be a random thing. We don't want just the same. We don't want to make it where we have to manually change what question we're going to have whenever we change this file, which would get old very quickly. So the way we'll make this random is we'll just create a variable right now, so this isn't too complicated, but I'll optimize this later on. We'll do a variable called random, and this is going to be equal to a PHP function called rand, and rand accepts two parameters. You have your start and your finish. So basically what it's going to do is create a number with 1 all the way to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, or 10. So the way we're going to do this is by counting the amount, counting the questions array. So whenever we count the questions, it's not going to count like, just want to make sure you know this. It's going to count the first set of keys, okay? It's going to count like 1 and then 2. It doesn't count the value or this array, okay? It's just going to clarify. It only counts that, okay? So now if we come over here to this random and we say random, or if we put that number, this ID in, it's going to show either 1 or 2. It's going to switch, so we'll reload 1 plus 3, reload a few more times, and you can see it's not very random, but it's not, we don't have to keep changing it, so we're getting both of those. And this is great right now because we don't have to, if we create a new question, so we have 3, and this will be equal to an array, obviously, again, and we do, I'm trying to think of something good, another good question that's not like math related. Or something just kind of interesting, you know, like, let's just do math, because it's easy to think of something random. We'll say like 1 plus 5, that'll be 6, and now we can reload this page, and we can get 1 plus 3, and 1 plus 5, and I got very lucky that it didn't take forever for that to shoot up here. So, now that we've created the random thing, for the random question, we need to go ahead and save this question in a session. So the reason I'm saving this in a session is because I want this so whenever they load this form and it creates this question, we have a way of saving this question's answer. We could put it in a hidden field. You know, we could come down here and we could say like input type equals hidden, and then put that answer in there, and we could check it that way. But that's not secure because a bot could read the source and look for validate or whatever. I don't really know how that works, but they could figure out how to get the answer fairly quickly. So what we do is we save it in a session. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say function. Actually, we don't need this to be a function. We just need to come up here and type in session. And we'll say like QID for question ID will be equal to random. And the reason this will work is because I have in my global.php, remember I started my sessions, but if you do not have sessions start on, it'll throw an error. You have to have sessions start on. Just remember that whenever you want to use sessions. So we've set our session. Let's go ahead and make this work. So if I reload this page, we get 1 is 1 plus 3. And I'll go ahead and click this email me. And the reason I did that is because this function for the create question only works if the form has not been submitted. Okay, so we don't have to worry about it changing the session right now, which I'm not sure it did because I didn't reload the page before it did that. So we have what is the color of snow, and what I'm going to do is just come up here and echo out the session QID. And we'll go ahead and email me, and you can see we got 2. So we know that we were looking at the second question. So let's go ahead and try to get the ID from that number. And this is going to be very simple. We'll just come down to the bottom, and we'll do function, and we'll say get answer. And we're going to do the global questions again. And we're going to say the question ID is going to be equal to the session QID. And we're going to then get the questions answer by doing questions. Let's just return the answer. So return questions, and then we'll do the question ID, and then we'll say answer. Okay, so now this creates the question by pulling the question, and this returns the answer. So the difference between a return and an echo. Well, an echo is actually going to put this on the page, while a return is just going to get the value of this and return it quietly in PHP. So an echo is actually going to make, let's just think of it, it's going to put it on the page so the user can see this, while return is going to put it in a format so PHP can read it inside the PHP code, because PHP can't read an echo. So now that we've returned it, we can just do this. Get question. We have to manually echo this when it's returned, just by the way. So we are returning get answer. And if I reload this page, it's going to ask me to resubmit this form. That's fine. And you can see that we got the answer was white. So I'm just going to go back to the very beginning of this form. What is 1 plus 3? Email me. 4. So now we got the answer. We just need to make sure that they submitted their validate answer correctly. So let's just go ahead and type this in. I'm just going to type in white and submit it. And it got the answer. But before we get this answer, we need to get what they typed in. So because the form has been submitted, we don't have to worry about this validate actually existing. So we'll just say the validate variable will be equal to. Now here's what we need to check this. Because by default, or not by default, but what I posted is going to be like this, validate. But if I go in, and I'm going to make a comment right here. In this comment, in the parentheses, let's pretend this is exactly what I type in, okay? The parentheses is just wrapping it. So let's say I typed in white just a second ago. What if I had accidentally added a space at the end of that? I wouldn't have seen that space because you can't really see the space in the text box. So whenever PHP checks this, it's going to get that entire value with the space. And because it has a space, it's not exactly the same as my answer. So PHP is going to say, well, they didn't type it in correctly. So what we need to do is trim it. So we'll type in a trim. And what trim's going to do is remove all the spaces on the left and the right side of the string. So if I typed in a space, white, and another space, it will return it as just white. Another thing that we need to do is, we're not necessarily checking this as a case sensitive because we're only going to use 2 equal signs. But if we use 3 equal signs, then it's going to be case sensitive. And we're not really worried about the case sensitivity. So, but just as an extra procedure, we'll just go ahead and run string to lower. And I'll wrap that. Again, so now we're trimming it and we're making the string to lower. So if I type in capital white, it will return it as white. Like that. So that's just 2 procedures that I find kind of necessary, just to make sure that even if they do a few things wrong by accident, we can still we can check it just to get it more accurate to what it needs to be. So little things by accident won't screw it up. So we'll write if, and here we're checking the validate, and that's equal to our get question answer. Then if it is, then let's just say echo out email sent. Else, if something went wrong, we'll just say like validation error. Okay, and I'll reload this, and we'll say it's 4, and I'll type that in. It says email sent. Now if I go back and I get what is 1 plus 3, and I type in 2, then we get a validation error, which isn't. It's telling us what we need to know. We know that's a validation error. But what's wrong with this? It's very annoying. We cannot get back to the form quickly. So like right now, I know I can go up to my URL bar and go to this. But we need to go ahead and just send out the form. So what I'm going to do is have an error thing, 2 error things. So we're having error count. That's going to be equal to 0. We're also going to have an error message. and that's going to be equal to an array. And the reason I'm making that an array, and I'm making this empty, so this is actually really cool and fairly relevant to this video, because we were working with arrays with this questions. But I'm only finding the basic or plain reason as to why this is accurate. So if it validates correctly, let's just go ahead and change this. Let's go ahead and just say if it does not validate. So the way we do that is by adding exclamation point equals. So this is saying if it's not equal to get answer, then we're going to do two things. We're going to say error count plus plus, which says get the error count and make it +1. So it's going to say error count 0 plus 1, so I'll have one error. The reason I'm doing this is because if I was checking like a username, or not a username in this case, like a name to make sure it's like more than 4 characters, then I could do like if string length for the name is greater than or equal to 4. Actually, let's do if it's not. Does that work? I don't know, but we're going to pretend that it works and act like we know it works. So if name is not greater than or equal to 4, then we would do error count again, plus plus. So now it would go up to 2 if both of those were wrong. So we do the plus plus just as an easy way. That's basically the equivalent of writing error count equals error count plus 1. Okay. After we've set the error count, we'll set an error message for the validate equal to like validation error. And then we'll come down and we'll say if the error count is greater than 0, so at least one thing went wrong and the error count had to go up by 1. So if it's greater than the original 0, then what we're going to do is just echo out that form. So I'm going to come back down here and just copy and paste this form. And one thing I just want to let you see is even though the form has submitted and it's going to recreate this question, it doesn't really matter because there was an error. Something went wrong, and when something goes wrong, we just what if we didn't make this validation error work correctly? Basically, what the bot could do is come in here, and let me just see if we're going to get. Yeah, that's going to be wrong. We come back and we get the same thing. You can't tell that something happened, but if I come below this validate and I say PHP if is set. And here we're making sure if the error message for validate is set. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because if the error message is not set, okay, if this is successful, they did not have an error, this validate array key will not be created, okay? It will only be created if there is an error. So we need to make sure it is set, and you'll notice at the very end I added this little semicolon. That's because we could do at the very end if. So if you've watched my videos for a long time, you'll see that I go back and forth between curly braces and colons. Well, I'm using colons right now. I changed the way I do this. Basically, I use semicolons when I have large blocks of PHP, but I use semicolons whenever I'm separating my PHP like this. Okay, so it I can see that I'm actually ending an F. I have a visual idea right here inside my HTML. But basically, if we have an error, I'm going to create a span and have the style of color equal to red. And I'm going to say like validation, actually we'll do PHP, echo the error message for validate. So now I can actually change my validation error up here, the actual text. And after this if, whether there's an error or not, we still want to let them know that they need to make sure you notice that you need to change this validate. So I'm going to add in green text, so span style, and then we'll say color is going to be green. Re-enter answer to question. Okay. Now the reason I'm doing it that way is because I want them to notice that they need to re-enter it, whether there's an error or not. If something goes wrong with something else, this value is going to be, this question is going to be recreated. The value is going to be blank, and if they forget to enter this, then it's going to give an error, and there's really no point if they accidentally missed it. If that makes sense. So let's just email me, and you can see we need to. Well, that's not good. Let's just take a look and see why this is happening. If error count is greater than 0, let's just echo out our error count and see what it's at. So reload this. Well, just submit this, and you can see we got one error. So something's not working with this error. This is actually supposed to be error message. If you notice that, good for you. That you've actually I was about to say it, you were paying attention, but I'm glad you noticed it. If you noticed it, you're kind of paying attention in the sense that you're not just watching me, if anybody does that. But let's go ahead and do this wrong. So we'll just leave it blank, and you can see we have validation error, re-enter. That doesn't look right. Normally, obviously, you wouldn't want it to do that because it doesn't make any sense. But for the purpose of this tutorial, you can see that we're getting what we kind of want. So what is the color of snow? Let's say that's white, and then re-email me. We did not get an error, so we did not get a value, but we'll go ahead and just add a value just for fun. So else echo email sent, and you can rest assured that the email was sent with that. So let's say for email me, email was sent. Let's go back. What is the color of snow? Let's say it's blue. We had an error. What is 1 plus 5? I'm going to add 2 or 3 spaces and say 6, and email me. The email was sent. Let's see if I can get the one with snow. If I write white, now you can't tell, but it's going like uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, uppercase, lowercase. Email me. And the email was sent. So thanks for watching this video, and goodbye.